Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of a wrestling. My host, JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest, of course, a member of the legendary Malenko family, former All Japan Pro Wrestling two-time Junior Heavyweight Champion, Mr. Joe Malenko. Joe, welcome in. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Thank you, John.
What is going on in your world? What are you up to?
My standard line is 5'7" and 3/4. I used to be 5'10", but gravity has taken hold. Over the next 5 to 10 years, I'll be able to do remakes of The Wizard of Oz. I'll be one of the little people.
Anything wrestling related? Are you doing anything? I saw you at OVW.
Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff going on. So, JBL is looking to get back and do some matches. So, I've been picked up as his trainer. So we're kind of doing some training stuff, getting around the country. I'm getting ready to go over to the UK. I just made the connection back there with what they used to, the original Snake Pit, as they used to say, in Wigan. And so they're having the UK national catch wrestling tournament, and I'll go and participate. I'm not going to participate as a wrestler, but I'll go and I'll participate. I'll do some trophy stuff and what have you. But yeah, enjoying some time with with Layfield, running around and doing some things, and probably make my way back to Japan too. That's it. Nice. Doing some seminar work. I've got some. I'm up in Ohio with Bobby Fulton. He's got a big deal up there that he runs where he has a show and he has a fan fest, and so I'm going to go up there, and I have at least one seminar, maybe a couple seminars, because that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing the seminar stuff, either submission wrestling, which is the legit stuff that I started when I was 1970, and then the pro stuff, because we trained a ton of guys in the time. My dad, my brother, and I.
Yeah, some pretty damn good guys too, as far as I'm concerned. Some legends coming through there. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we throw. You just hit a hot button with me. We throw the term legend around a lot. Superstar. Everybody's a superstar nowadays. If you climbed into a ring once, actually, if you were a fan and before the matches you got in the ring, you can actually claim legend status and tell your friends you're a superstar, because it just means that you got in the ring once, maybe. Yeah.
Right. But what about like
what's that?
What about Kane?
Well, I mean, I guess he's a legend because he had one hell of a run and he was on top of the game. So yeah, but there's very few in my eyes that were truly and most of the legendary guys in my eyes are guys from another generation ago.
What about Sean Waltman?
My dad included. What?
Sean Waltman got to be up there now.
Yeah, definitely. What you're mentioning are definitely guys who were good hands in the business, had great runs, did some great things. But legendary status is like that's the pinnacle, man. It takes a lot to be legendary, and we've lost track of that. I just that's a little bit of that's just a prickly little thing with me. Because but look, I have people. I was up at OVW. Some guy comes up to me, he goes, "Oh my God, you're a living legend." I said, "Well, it's better than the other kind of legend." Dead.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but I guess if you're gonna be a legend, you're a legend, whether or not you're alive or dead. But and I don't say, when I say stuff like this, it's not it's not to put forth my humble nature, because I feign humbleness. I have an ego. We all do in this business, and especially if you were a legit wrestler, you have an ego. You think, unless you thought you were good, where the hell are you gonna go? So, but anyway, I'm belaboring this a bit. It's the legend deal is kind of an issue for me. And then this is the superstar thing. So everybody's years ago, in a galaxy far, far away, when we used to talk about people in the movies, and I'm talking quite a ways back, there were only a couple of movie stars. Everybody else was just an actor or an actress. Now, you do a porn somewhere and you're a movie star. Not really, but kind of.
Sad but true. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no true like John Wayne.
We've trivialized and bastardized words that once really meant something. But again, that's just my quirkiness.
Yeah, there's no true like John Wayne's, if you will, like real movie stars, big times.
Yeah, he was a movie star, you know.
Now you mentioned your dad, obviously, definitely a legend in your eyes, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
well, yeah, he was a. I mean, look, he was obviously a legend in my eyes because he's my dad. And was he legendary for certain territories? Yes. For the Florida territory, no doubt. I mean, I have people. My dad passed away 34 years ago. I still have people come up to me and tell me that he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and my God, they loved him, and you know how them and their grandparents or them and their mom or dad used to go to the matches, and it was such a great time for them and bonding time, and how memorable that is, and how wonderful. I had a guy chase me out in the parking lot from a restaurant once, and he started talking to me. He starts tearing up, and then of course, you know, I'm an emotional guy, so I start tearing up. Now I'm sitting in the parking lot with this guy crying because he's telling me how much my dad meant to him, and we're talking 50 years since my dad really was on top of the game here in Florida. So that's pretty meaningful. That's I guess that constitutes, if not legendary status, near legendary status.
yeah, for sure. So obviously, you know, he's in the business. You're his kid. Is it automatic that you get in, or does he not want
No.
you to get in, like that type of thing?
Well, I mean, every dad is different. My dad, and I'll always say this until I drop dead. My dad was a great guy when it came to providing opportunities, but that's all he did. He provided an opportunity. You know, he said, "Look, if you want to do this, I'll make this happen, or I'll do the best I can." Um, he really didn't have a lot of luck. You know, so my dad did a lot of independent stuff. He fought the establishment a lot towards the end. Doing independent shows and stuff like that, and running head to head against some of the big boys like the Welshes and the Welshes and the Fullers and Graham here in town. So he did all that. I forgot where I was going. This is what happens.
If he wanted you in or not.
Oh yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, bring me back. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he wanted me in or he didn't want me in, but he loved the business. It was his everything. Much to the chagrin of my mom. The business was his life. So he loved it. And of course, if you love something, you want it for your kids. So again, he just, he said, "Hey, you can work out at the gym here. I'll make sure you got guys to train with." It's like the first time I went to Mexico City. So I'd been refereeing. I wrestled a little bit, but not much. And I was going to Mexico for my first real tour of anywhere in the States or out of the States. Mexico City was it. So I go to Mexico. I'm there 4 or 5 months, I guess. And, the first thing my dad did was he went to Abe Jacobs, who was an old New Zealander who was with Don Curtis. Great guy, great tag team. And Abe went down, in Charlotte to the ring with me and, worked with me. So that's the kind of stuff my dad was able to do. He was able to put me with some really good guys to help bring me, bring my level of competency up in the ring, and to make sure that if I went somewhere, I wasn't going to embarrass myself, him, or anybody else. Although in Mexico, I wasn't that great. I just, I was starting out. Yeah. So he was just really good that way. Here, Joe, Hojo, here you go. Yeah. Take this and run with it. If you want it, I'll help you. If not, no big deal. And that's how he was. He never really, but he wasn't around long enough to see. He saw some of the success of my brother and I in Japan. He really wasn't around to see a lot of the big successful stuff, both for myself in business and my brother in the wrestling business, because he ended up doing some great things. So that was kind of sad. But I know he's watching, still watching.
When you look, talk about the Fullers and the Welshes just for a second, I only a few years ago discovered that Plan B. I don't know if have you ever seen that?
God. Huh?
Have you seen?
Well, first of all, I lived it. I didn't live
Right.
Plan B, but I lived the time I was up there. I was up there in Knoxville with the crew, which was some of the best guys in the business. Ronnie Garvin, Bob Roop, Bobby Orton Jr., Randy, Lanny, my dad, Dick Slater. So there were the top guys in the business who all came together to form this group to go against the Fullers and the Welshes at the time. And it was driven by the fact that, promoters, there were some territories where promoters really just just didn't treat you well or didn't pay super well, or whether or not they did or they didn't, the guys didn't view it as such. So it was a way to go against them. And the plan B thing was just, well, if it all explodes, if it all goes to hell in a handbasket and the Welches or Fullers start threatening, we've got this in our back pocket. I didn't even know about it. I didn't even know about the video. When the video surfaced, I had no idea. When I looked at it the first time, I went, holy crap. Because you really can't talk about kayfabe anymore in the way that we used to talk about kayfabe, but we'll talk about kayfabe, and in the world of kayfabe, under the banner of professional wrestling, these guys were old school guys. So if you would have walked up, there were times in my dad's life, if you would have walked up to him and said, hey, wrestling's fake, you're a bunch of BS and all this, and my dad would have kicked your ass. These guys would have destroyed you. So for them to see the guys on the tape that I saw, and I stay in touch with Bob Roop Bob's a good friend. To see the guys on the tape that I saw saying what they said about the business and how it was, that was freaking amazing. But it was never meant to see the light of day. I mean, it was just that ace in the hole kind of thing that I don't think they ever had any intentions of using unless something exploded. But it would have. Well, Vince McMahon eventually did it, right?
Yeah.
A little bit smoother. It affected a much greater change especially for his pocketbook. Yeah. It was an interesting time. And when I look at it, I mean, I look at it and I watch my dad, and of course I hear him, I smell him, I miss my dad, and then it just amazes me that he said what he said, because he was very protective of the business. That was his deal, man. He loved being a professional wrestler.
Yeah, and all those guys, I was surprised. Not that I would expect Bob Roop to do that either, but it's just like, wow, I can't believe Boris Malenko it's just like a shocking tape. I know it never really was meant to be seen, or it's more of a threat to Ron Fuller, but yeah. Crazy that it got out there. That's just nuts how it surfaced.
Well, that's the world we live in. I mean, it's a world we've always lived in, which is, if you're going to do something, you got to do it with an understanding at some point in time somebody's probably going to see it. So I mean, the whole concept behind that is you do the right thing and you behave, and you don't do anything that's not going to, that's going to come back to bite you. Again, I don't think they did this with any intent other than just having that ace in the hole where they could point, if the Fullers or the Welches really gave them a hard time, they could say, hey, screw with us again, and we're releasing this bad boy. I don't even know if they would have done it then. You'd have to ask Bob.
Do you get in the ring with your dad a lot at this point, like when you're getting, or not really at all?
So I was on the mat with my dad a lot. Both, messing around pro and then doing some submission stuff. I broke his finger, which he never let me forget for the rest of his life. Every time I would do something, I would give him a hard time. He'd go, it was his pinky. Well, he put his hand out like this when it was freestyle, but then you go into submission stuff, and he put his hand out like this and he left his finger exposed. I just took it, went boom, and I broke it. I was a nice kid. I felt a little bit guilty about that, but then he made me feel guilty about it for the next 30 years. As far as working against him, I only worked against him one time, and it was up in the Knoxville territory, which was kind of neat to get in the ring with your dad. And it was a singles match. It was me against him. I think my name up there was Joe Sims or something like that. I've had so many different ring names, as my dad did as well. And I had a chance to be across the ring from my father, which was pretty special.
That's a pretty.
And I didn't say a word. I just let him. He led me, and we had a good match.
Very cool experience. Were you like nervous at all, or were you just like, this is cool? This is awesome.
Nah, I've never. And I don't. I don't know how this comes off sounding, but I never really got nervous getting in the ring. I'm a I'm a very clumsy guy naturally. My brother and my dad. So I'm good. I'm doing what I do, which is go all the way all crazy here. So years ago there was a movie. It was called Born Free. It was about 𝐿_SO the lion cub and the raising of 𝐿_SO the lion cub. And there was a song in the movie. It was Born Free as the wind blows. Okay, so my brother and my dad changed that to Born Clumsy. So I was. Yeah, they would sing that song because I would knock stuff over the table, or I would trip over things. But then I got on a mat, and I don't know what it was, but the minute I got on the mat, I just felt like the most competent and well balanced and hard guy to move, just because I just felt at ease on a mat. So yeah.
Man, it's pretty cool to be able to wrestle your dad, especially like young. That young in the business, pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I really had the opportunities to wrestle a lot of guys that were great. I had the privilege and the opportunity, the privilege to wrestle, and especially in Japan, because everybody who was anybody came to Japan. People would always look at me. They go, "Well, why don't you want to wrestle on the States?" Well, number one. I'm going to number two already. I didn't even say number one. Now I said number one. Number one, I wasn't a big guy. I was 5'10", 2.25. I get up to 230 when I was synthetically bringing myself up to 230. And then on top of that, I didn't really want the business as a full-time gig. So I focused my attention in the wrestling world on Japan. And then in Japan, everybody came over. So I got to train and work out and wrestle everybody and anybody who was well-known, popular, top of the heap here in the US, because they all came over there. It was great times. And then you got to wrestle all the Japanese wrestlers as well, and just some phenomenal performers, very powerful ring guys, and I loved it. I didn't really even need to work here, and I was comfortable doing what I did over there.
Did you like the shoot style? Because it felt like you kind of early on
were
a big adopt, like UWF. I mean, we weren't really sure of this shoot style stuff, but Japan, it was all the rage.
Yeah, well, it predated all the MMA stuff that you see today, and then it all evolved into what became the UFC over here, and all the top talent originally came over from Japan, and Pancrase and Pride, the Josh Barnett's, the Boss Rutens, the Dan Severn,
Shamrocks.
Ken. I mean, Ken was in my dojo with Fujiwara. So everything really started in Japan. Nobody even knew of the Gracies and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Nobody. It wasn't even on anybody's radar screen. It was all Japan focused. Yeah. It was just a great time, and I loved it because I love the legitimate fight. To attempt to, you could either pin somebody or you could attempt to submit them. So you had to have a really diverse mat game in order to be a good submission specialist. You had to be a freestyler, and you had to, know your submissions to be able to work those into your regular wrestling.
Great sport. Yeah, UWF, of course, and eventually would be UWFI, down the road. But early in basically mid-'85s, UWF, a very young Takada, who obviously becomes like a god in Japan, still a god in Japan. I mean, you wrestled him very early on. So do you kind of notice, like, man, these some of these guys are going to be stars, or like, what do you think about guys like Takada?
Nah, I wasn't really paying much attention to who was the top of the heap at any given time or where they would, possibly end up. I mean, I just knew that if I was in the ring with somebody and they were a good hand in the ring, I knew that. If they sucked, I knew that. And most of the guys I was in the ring with were really good at doing what they did. Come on, Jody. Kobashi, Kenta Kobashi.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I would have known that. I never would have known. It's not that I wouldn't have thought it, but I wasn't thinking at the time that, oh my God, this guy's going to be a superstar in Japan. I didn't think about that. I used to train him in the ring. Baba sent Kobashi and Kikuchi to Hawaii. We spent, I don't remember if it was a couple weeks or just a week, whatever it was, but we had a training camp there where we helped him and Kikuchi come along. And then, eventually Kobashi's, he's top of the heap over there. But I would have never known that. He was always nice to me. He was a tough guy. He had wrestled, he was an amateur prior, so he had some good wrestling background. But to become a pro and really get ahead in the pro business doesn't necessarily mean that you had to be a great amateur. and he just, he excelled. But if you would have asked me when I was working with him, hey, you think this guy's going to be one of the top guys in Japan, I would have said, I don't know.
So you like the shoot style? You prefer that style, even the All Japan style, which is a bit more stiff and snug, right? The quote unquote strong style.
Yeah, yeah. Because I like so I like actual shoot wrestling or actual submission wrestling because that's what I did. I mean, I was trained by Carl. Carl was a submission wrestler. He learned going through his deal at Wigan over in England, which I'm going to be going to in June actually. The old Wigan, the old Snake Pit is no longer, but they've got a new building, I guess, and Roy Wood runs it. So I'm going to be headed over there. But Carl came through that. By the time he made it to the States, he had already started improvising and changing things around and fine tuning stuff. So it became really Gotcha's own style. And my dad came to me at one point and said, "Hey, do you want to work out with him? Do you want to train with him? If you do, I'll let him know because he's coming back to Tampa from Hawaii." And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I really didn't even know what that entailed, but I found out in short order that it was pretty tough. Carl didn't even show me technique. I mean, he busted my ass for almost a solid year, just toughening me up, beating the crap out of me, having me do squats and push-ups and getting in, as great a condition as I could get. And then it was after about a year where he finally goes, "Okay, you're ready to go." And that's when we started learning submissions and the technical aspects of being on a mat as a submission wrestler or a shoot guy. But I loved it.
Yeah, that's a great experience. Who else trains obviously with Carl Gotch, but who else was training with you, or was just one-on-one?
Well, it was one-on-one for a lot of it, and for a long period of time at different periods, it was just Carl and I, but there were multiple people coming in. Most of the Japanese came in at some point, from Fujinami to Kido to Fujiwara to, pretty much all the guys from over there at some point in time came in. Hideki Suzuki. So that was one thing. Then he would go back and forth to Japan, so he would train them when he was over there. And then we had a few guys here in the States. There was, the one guy who was the longest with me was a guy by the name of Terry Rotolo. He was older, and Terry was smaller, but tough kid, very agile, great endurance. So he worked out with us for the longest period of time, and he worked out the most with me and Carl. And then there was a bunch of other people. A lot of people came in towards the latter part of things when I was kind of winding down already. I spent about 7 years full time, almost every single day for about 7 years. And then, at some point in time, you just kind of wind it down.
So when you get into All Japan, how does that happen? Is that like through Dory Funk or through your dad, or how do you get into All Japan in basically the late 80s?
That was through Carl. Eventually, I got the introduction to Lord Blair's over in Hawaii, who was booking at the time, and he made the connection happen. Carl was handling the book for Inoki here in the States at that point. So Carl made a couple calls. He didn't get me in for Inoki, but he got me in for Baba. And I don't remember. Frankly, I don't remember why. I don't remember why I didn't go for New Japan first. But I'm glad it all went down the way it went down because I made some really great friends and got to know a lot of people and had a phenomenal time over there. And then eventually I got to work for New Japan. I worked for probably 4 or 5 organizations over the time that I was there, in and out.
When you initially there, you were with Dean. You guys are the Malenko brothers. Is that like when you initially went to All Japan? You were going to be a team together?
Yeah. When I initially went to All Japan, it was Dean and I. We were a tag team. And then, but when I was doing some of the shoot stuff for like UWF and stuff, I was going by myself. And then eventually, my brother, hit it pretty decent here in the States, so he stayed, and I would go back in and out of Japan. They kind of really picked up on me there as a junior, junior weight guy, and they also really appreciated the fact that I was a Gotch student. So I have the technical side of things, and they liked that. I mean, they nicknamed me the suplex machine because I used to do different suplexes and saltos and different throws and stuff like that Carl taught me. So I was a pretty decent technical guy, and they just the Japanese audience was always just amazing because they appreciate the living crap out of you when you're a hardworking technician in that ring, or when you're just a beast, like a Stan Hansen who runs tanks over.
They love the shooters, right? And over there, I mean, they love those type guys.
Yeah.
So you're 5 years older than Dean, is that right?
For 4 years, 2 months. Not that anybody's counting.
Okay. So did you play hand in training him? Obviously, you're the elder statesman. Did you train him or no, not really?
Nah, I just beat the crap out of him. and sometimes I felt guilty. Not really, but I did, but not really. But kind of, but not really.
Right. So is he following in your footsteps or your dad's footsteps, or is that like another thing kind of organically just happens where he's entering the business as well?
Just happened. I mean, so the one thing about my brother is my brother always wanted the business. My brother wanted to be in the business. My brother wanted to do that full time. And that's what he waited until he got his shot. And, the ECW stuff, and then ECW on over to, WCW, and then WCW to WWE. I mean, he finally made his way, and he was a great in-ring performer. I mean, my brother became, as far as a technician in the way that they view technical wrestling now, which is different than me because I am more of a laid back, not high flying, not grabbing. I'm a hold grabber. My brother and Eddie and Chris and all those guys, they just they could do miraculous stuff, and my brother became one of the best hands out there, bar none. And then he stepped behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. Definitely. So that was never kind of your thought, though. You never kind of wanted it as bad as he did, though. So that's kind of why the trajectory went the way.
Well, I had it. I had it. I just didn't have it full time. I'm a strange duck in that I've done a lot of different things. And I went to lunch today with my grandson, and I was telling my grandson some things. He was looking at me like, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you did that. I don't know you did that. I've done a lot of stuff. So my ability to do a lot of different things was fueled, or I had the ability to do that by not digging in full time in any one thing. So I didn't dig in, but I didn't have to. I got what I needed out of wrestling. And even now, I mean, I have a level of respect that older guys just kind of get, and then I think I always handle myself well, so I'm kind of respected for that, and I love doing the seminar stuff, and I'm looked at a certain way when I do the seminars because I've got a lot of experience. I've been around for a long time now, and I enjoy doing that and helping kids kind of fine tune their matches and what they're doing, and so that they look a little bit more solid out there, and ultimately they have good matches and they don't kill themselves before they're 30 years old.
Yeah. Oh God. So Dean is more like a wrestling lifer, like he's obsessed with you, not like obsessed. You have to do wrestling. You know what I mean? No. You're multifaceted, if you will.
Yeah, but again, my brother wanted in the business, and he got in. It took him a little while, but he got in. And what happened too was the whole environment changed from just a big man sport, and if you weren't a big man, you weren't going anywhere, to all of a sudden now there's these great junior heavyweights or get guys that they're still decent size. They're just not 6'8", 300 pounds. So all of a sudden, all these guys are coming in. They're great performers, and they're really outperforming everybody, all the guys at the top. And that's how the business changed quite a bit. I mean, I go to independents now. I'm not, years ago, if you would have gotten even into the independent stuff, you would have seen all these big guys running around. Now some guys look like they need a good meal because they're so lean.
Yeah. It almost looks like they're not real wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like that, you don't get the sense.
Yeah. But no matter who's in there, if they know what they're doing, we had a couple guys who worked for us, who trained with us. Kid by the name of Oscar Ledoux. Oscar looked like he was he just got off a crack and he was coming in off the streets, and yet he was a phenomenal hand in the ring. He was a good performer, But in the day when I was really looking at the business, I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere decent because I was a smaller guy. And my brother came in at the tail end of that, where they really started looking at the smaller guys because the performances were so great. I mean, my brother and Eddie Guerrero, when they had their match they had a series of matches at ECW, but they had their last match, and it was just, it was like it is a classic. I'll use that word for their match. It was a classic match, and people still talk about that match.
Kind of set the stage for a lot of guys after that, for sure.
For the
copying it almost.
For the for the smaller crew, for the smaller guys, and I hate to use that word, but we're smaller guys. I mean, I wasn't Tugboat, I wasn't Hulk Hogan, I wasn't Undertaker. I was me, and my brother was him, and he's shorter than I am, but he got past that because all these guys eventually showed what they were really made of, and you can't. I'm going to say this, but but it's not true all the time. But it's true most of the time. You can't keep a good man down. You can't keep good things quieted for too long or tucked away for too long, because eventually somebody sees and they go, "Wow, this is pretty phenomenal." And that's what happened, with my brother and Chris and Eddie and Perry Saturn and those guys. I mean, Sabu and Taz and all those guys for ECW. They were great performers, and they weren't giants.
It's like the 80s had Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask. The 90s had Dean and Eddie. You know what I mean? Like to kind of copy off of.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
It just felt like Dean, obviously, he's going to excel. And I always see, I want to say it's Bobby Blaze, but I also want to say it's Bob Cook. They always post your match with Dean from All Japan. I'm trying to remember the date of it, but you guys had like this classic match. They always go, and I don't know how often it is, but I always see it pop up. And I don't even know if it's the same thing, but they always post that match of you versus Dean from All Japan.
Yeah. And it's humorous and bothersome all in one shot. That you have these matches in your life, and that's kind of what you get recognized for, however many there are, 2, 3, 4, whatever, half a dozen, hopefully more. And I look back on my career, I look back on the career of other people, and I think so much more robust than just these couple of matches. But those are the ones that get brought up all the time. The one match that constantly comes back on me is the Bulldogs against my brother and I. It's one of those matches. I think the first time I ever met Chris Jericho, that's the first thing he said to me. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I remember I watched you." It's that old thing. I watched you when I was a kid. And he brought up the Bulldog Malenko match. And was it a good match? Yes. Was it a barnstormer? I guess it was because of the crowd. The crowd reacted to that match with a lot of special attitude. And I'm not sure why. I guess we were the underdogs, and we were kind of popping through a few times, and just the way the match went, it just clicked. But I've had a ton of great matches that I consider to be just as good, if not better than that one. I've also had some matches that I walked away going, "That was a shit." Somebody shouldn't give me a paycheck for that one.
Right.
Although I took every paycheck.
I think it's Dynamite Kid kind of considered a god over there. It's just, and to a certain extent, because they love the Tiger Mask. He's just considered so legendary. And you guys were so good, but underdogs. So it's like, oh, these guys are going to beat Dynamite. You know what I mean? They're going to beat the Bulldog. So I feel like that played a huge part of the crowd just kind of really getting behind it.
Of course. And again, you're just dealing with you're dealing with an audience in Japan that really just appreciates the living crap out of the sheer physicality of a match, and the willingness of guys in Japan in particular to just leave everything in the ring. And that's what I loved about it. I was okay just working there and not really doing much in the States at all. But my brother needed more, and he needed more from the time he was a young man, because he just set his sights. Just took him a little longer than he wanted.
So what are the other great matches that you would consider? Like, if you could think off the top of your head of, like, besides obviously the Bulldogs.
Oh man, I've had thousands of matches. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I've had a lot of matches that I really enjoyed, and I thought were great matches. For me, they were good, and the crowd reaction was what I needed it to be, which is the ultimate. You do everything for the audience. You don't really do anything for yourself. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah, now, just too much.
No, it's funny, like, he wanted to be in the States and that, but if you really look at it, All Japan kind of, and maybe, people would disagree, they might have had the best roster ever from like the late 80s to basically like the late 90s. I mean, everybody 100%. Was there, and literally the best of the best, easily.
It was they were deep in talent.
I don't know what you're going to think about this one guy, but I always mention him, and some people have one opinion of him, some people have another. What do you think about Johnny Ace? Do you get along with Johnny Ace? What do you think about Ace?
Look, I get along with Johnny. I know him pretty well. It's not like we hang out or anything like that. But if I see him around somewhere, we're very friendly. Johnny, so the funny, I'll tell people every day that Johnny Laurinaitis was the best worker. Johnny Laurinaitis was the best worker in the business.
Whoa.
Yeah, not in the ring.
Oh,
but in the business.
Well, he's a good politician then.
He's the best worker in the business.
Wow. Okay. So he's great behind the scenes as well. He's a good politician.
Hey, he's done, given, if you were going to list a bunch of guys who just were talented in-ring performers, I don't know if Johnny would have been on that list. And I don't mean that to be mean. There was just so many great guys. I don't know if if you listed 100 guys over there, I don't know if I'd put myself on the list, but I definitely wouldn't put Johnny Ace on the list. But as far as his ability to take what he had and leverage it every which way and make a career out of himself, make a career for himself, and then have that career be so long and pretty prestigious, especially at the WWE level for so many years. Yeah, you can't argue with that shit.
Yeah, obviously, big time with All Japan behind the scenes. WCW for years, and then 20 years.
Mrs. Baba, Mrs. Baba thought the world of him. Yeah.
So interesting with him, like some vitriol from some of the guys I talked to about Ace. But I like a lot of his matches too. Not to say that he was great, but I like a lot of his matches too.
I'm not saying he sucked. I'm just saying that if you look at somebody and where they go in a particular business, usually it's based on the fact that what they did in the original days of their dealings in the business. So, for example, in the wrestling business, you're in ring. For you to move from in ring to the promotional side, the back office business side, that's unusual. But it all starts off in ring, so you would think that somebody would be a great in-ring performer to then move on over into the business side, to be able to have that credibility and tell people, hey, look at what I've done. I've done these great things in the business, and now I want to help you do the same thing as a promoter, as a booker, as an agent for the business. And he didn't have that pedigree, but he made it work. You got to give him. The guy's got street cred.
He's no Terry Gordy or like Stan Hansen or Dr. Death or something like that. There's no way. Yeah.
No, are you kidding? Those guys were they were beasts. In many different ways, they were beasts, and good friends, all of them.
And just to think that those guys are doing these tours and like that's just like the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? As far as the talent level, just like through the roof over there for years.
Yeah. And all these. What's that?
Throw the Funk's name in there too.
Oh yeah, Terry and Dory. My brother. That wasn't the greatest of great matches, but it was a good match between my brother and I and Terry and Dory. Terry was a pretty good friend. He was a good friend. He was a good friend partly, not mostly, but partly because he attributed a lot of who he was and his success to my dad. Besides his own father, he said my dad was the greatest influence on him. So, wow, that's pretty heavy. Yeah, that's pretty heavy duty. And in his book, this is a big pat on the back, self pat. In his book, he said I think he said something to the effect that one of my regrets is that I didn't get a chance to work against Malenkos more.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that was in his book. I think that's the only part of his book. That's the only part of his book that I read.
Huge compliment, though. That's awesome.
No shit.
Yeah. That's great. I was not happy to hear that him and Dusty actually did get along. I was not happy to hear that. Later in life, I always figured they hated each other. I was hoping that him and Dusty hated each other, but they didn't. Kind of ruined it a little bit for me,
Yeah. Look, most of the guys got along, and then you got to think about the mechanics of the business and the operational side of the business. Especially in the territory days, you're on top of each other morning, noon, and night. It's you you're the guys in the territories. They were your, whether you liked them, you didn't like them, they were your family. You were stuck with them. You know, you were riding the roads with them. You were eating dinner and breakfast and lunch. You were working out. You were training. You were having matches against them. You were, getting in a car and driving 5-6 hours to the next town or back to Charlotte or wherever. Or if you were in Florida, you were making the circuit here in Florida. So you kind of had to, with rare exception, you kind of had to get along.
With All Japan, two-time, world junior heavyweight champion. Does that mean anything to you? Like, it's just, I know it's great on the resume, but does it or no? Because some guys really want titles, and so it means nothing.
So here's the so just as I was espousing my disdain for people saying legend and stuff like that.
Yes,
it tickles me. It tickles me when somebody says, "Yes, I was a 2-time champion of this." No, you weren't. You weren't champion of anything. You didn't win crap.
True. Yeah.
Some promoter, you could draw money, and because you could draw money, some promoter said, I'm gonna put the strap on you."
Right.
And they put the strap on you. So now you got a belt. You didn't win it. If you had to go out and win that thing legitimately, would you have it? 9 out of 10? No. I mean, I've known Rick since 1973, I guess, Flair.
Mm-hmm.
And I've, again, not my best bud, but very cordial with him. I think very highly of Rick, actually. But another polarizing. So many guys are polarizing figures. I think hard worker, busted his ass, gave everything he had to the business, bled, sweat, shit, professional wrestling. So how do you argue with the fact that he was great and legendary status? Yeah, Ric Flair. Where the hell was I going again?
About the titles.
Oh, titles.
Yes.
Yeah, but even Rick says 16 times, and part of it's the gimmick thing, for all these guys. 16 times this, 17 times this, 18 times. But if you had to go out and really win it, if they said you can only have this if you can really beat the guy in the ring with you, how many of the world champions would have had belts? Harley.
Yeah, Harley, Lou Thez, yeah.
Thez, yeah. But even Thez, I mean, there were tougher guys than Thez. There were guys that were tougher than Harley. Oh, I mean, people say he was the toughest guy, but a lot of tough guys, a lot of strong guys, a lot of great athletes, a lot of great wrestlers. I mean, people don't realize, you think pro wrestling, you think one thing, but if you really start to break it down amongst the guys who have been in the business all the years that I've been around, I mean, phenomenal athletes, guys who went to the Olympics, guys who medaled in the Olympics, guys who medaled in the world, guys who took, national championships for D1, in D1 schools. I mean, Steve Williams, he was a powerhouse. He was legit.
Definitely. I just think in like titles, and a lot of the guys think too, it's money wise, like, okay, this means there's a little bump up in the pay. You know what I mean? Maybe a raise.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's attached to, and maybe not as much as some people would like. I guess you can win a title, and I mean when they said, hey, we want to give you the deal over in Japan, I don't remember them going, and alongside of that, we're giving you a bonus, or we're gonna up your weekly pay, or I mean, I got my deal just based on being there and being consistent, and I never disrespected Baba, and he appreciated me, and he took care of me as a mid-tier guy. I knew my place. I knew where I was. And, when they decided to let the junior thing come on over to me for a couple times, it's not like they said, okay, well, now that you're this, we're going to give you this. No, they didn't do that. Maybe I ought to go back and call somebody.
Yeah, they owe you. Come on.
Hey, you bastards.
Yeah. Now, my first time that I really saw you was 1992. I mean, I'm basically, around 10 years old at this point. But it was WCW's Classic.
You didn't need to say that. You know that, right?
Well, yeah. True. But Clash of the Champions 92, was that supposed to be a longer run? Because it's basically, we see the Malenko brothers. They're part of this tag team tournament.
No,
and then...
it was a one and done.
Really? Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, I think most guys, if they would have had an opportunity to do something like that, they would have been making phone calls and, trying to press the flesh and seeing if they couldn't have gotten a contract in place. But I didn't do that. I don't know how many times to say it, but I didn't want I didn't want what the business had to offer full time. I was content with my little place in the world and what I was doing in Japan. And if I got a chance to work over here once in a while, I did that just because I could, and I made a few bucks. But I wasn't gonna. There are guys in this business who, when they wanted to get into a territory or wanted to, move into a promotion, they're making calls every day. Hey, can I come in? Please, please. I didn't do that crap. I'm like, hey, thanks. That was great. That was an interesting night because I did 500 squats before the match, and Harley comes walking to the back, and I'm doing squats, free squats. And he's got a cigarette. He kind of looks at me, and I forget what he said, but it's something kind of funny. And then he turned around and walked off as he's smoking a cigarette, and I'm doing squats. And then I don't think he worked that night. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't work that night, but yeah.
No, he was definitely retired by 90. I think it's really technically his last match is 1990, but there are some house show appearances where, I don't know, Vader got hurt or something, so he had to wrestle Flair in like 93 on some house shows. So it's like he could still wrestle, I guess, if he wanted to, but he's pretty much retired at that point.
Well, again, for most of the guys who came up through certain years, it wasn't that difficult to get back in the ring until later on in their life because, I could still have a match. I could still go and have a match. I'll be 70 in June. I could still have a match, but I can't have an AEW or I can't have a high flying binga kind of match. I can have grab a headlock, stay there for 10 minutes. And then take it home kind of match.
Yeah, now it's kind of a little bit of a car crash, right? I mean, some of the stuff that they're doing on AEW and even WWE to some extent, they get a little crazy in there, maybe unnecessarily so.
It's not necessary, not at all.
Now, ECW again. I know you didn't push for it, you didn't want to. Like, it's nothing that you really was. That ever supposed to be anything though? Because obviously Dean makes
not for me. Yeah,
did they ever say, Joe, come with Dean? We want you both here.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. But I didn't let it. I mean, I don't know if I made it known that I wasn't interested, but I just didn't push. I think everybody knew that I had other things going on. So I was in pharmacy school in 80 through 83. So I was already a pharmacist when 83 was over. So it's not like I was going to give up pharmacy because I was, it's a good profession and it was gonna hold me in good stead for the rest of my life. So I wasn't willing to give that up to go into the into the pro ranks full time. And here's the thing, the chance of me of ever getting in at that point in time and getting a really good contract where I was making a few $100,000 a year, that wasn't going to happen. So I took it for what it was worth. And back to the Japan thing. Every time I went over there, I knew what I was going to get paid, and every time the tour ended, I got paid the exact amount. Nobody ever stiffed me. Nobody ever looked at me and said, we didn't have a great house here, and we're going to have to give you a little bit less. We'll catch up with you somewhere down the road, like 10 years from now. Yeah. So I just didn't care.
Now it's always kind of like that. I guess you would say like internet rumor that maybe you and Dean were a bit stiff with like Taz and Sabu and ECW. No truth to that, right? That's just the style.
No.
Being stiff and snug.
No, I wasn't. I mean, I have buddies of mine that'll joke with me about moments where I did something and it was a little on the stiff side, but I mean, I'd like to think that I was a pretty easy hand in the ring. There were with every long career, because I did it for a long time, there were moments where I whoopsed. But then you get a receipt, or somebody whoopses you and you give them a receipt. I mean, I took a Hansen clothesline a few times.
Right, and he was pretty damn vicious with those.
He was scary because you couldn't see it.
Right, I remember talking to him, and I was saying, like, you were so stiff, and he's like, "Well, I couldn't see, so I didn't want to go too soft." I'm like, "Wow, what an excuse!" But apparently, it's true. He couldn't really see.
No, it was legit. It was legit, and it worked. And but I loved the fact that there were certain guys who just looked so solid, and Stan was one of those guys. He just looked solid. Terry Gordy, solid as they come. I mean, he'd throw you into the ropes, but he'd follow you in and he'd give you a clothesline against the against the turnbuckle, and he looked like he'd tear you apart because he'd come in with everything he had. and it was just impressive stuff. You know, he didn't have to do backflips. He didn't have to do anything off the top rope. He just made it look so solid, staying on the ground, doing what he did.
I just love how, like, through the years, Japan just keeps bringing you back to like the new shoot promotion, like Fujiwara Gomi. Then it's like UWFI, Battle Arts. Like they all had such respect for you, and it's like we're gonna every time like there would be like this new shoot style promotion, they'd always want you to be a part of it, or at least it seemed that way to me.
Yeah, I mean, I did get treated pretty well, and I attribute that to the fact that I was with Carl for a long time, and Carl had the respect, so I sort of had fallout respect because Carl was so highly revered. You know, not too many people get called the god of anything. I mean, they may in their own heads believe that they are, but Carl was actually referred to as Kami-sama. You know, he was the god. He was the god of wrestling, and it wasn't just a moniker that they threw on him or you know or joked around about it. It was Carl Gotch is the god of wrestling in Japan, and it was legit, and he was. And so I think you know, just by default, just by being one of Carl's, you know, older, more established students, I got some good treatment because of it.
Did you like working some of his guys like Minoru Suzuki, Fujiwara? Did you like working those guys because they're Carl Gotch
Yeah,
guys?
yeah, I had great times working against all those guys. I had a couple really good matches against Fujiwara.
It seems like I know it's like a perfect pairing, but you wouldn't think it's a perfect pairing because you got the Japanese against the American, but same style, same teacher, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, yeah. It worked. It all worked.
Do you prefer? Obviously, you spend more time over there, but do you prefer the Japanese like that? Just the style, the culture over, wrestling here in the states and what the states style and culture is.
I mean, I've had moments of enjoyment all over the place. In general, yeah, Japan was my go-to place, and the people there were always phenomenal. And culturally, it was just a nice fit for me. I took my year ago, maybe a little bit, yeah, about a year ago. I took my grandson, I took my daughter, my younger daughter, and my grandson with me because I was doing a seminar over there, and then we are going to do some other stuff. And they both left that country going, we want to come back. My grandson said, Grandpa, I want to live here. It's that wonderful. I mean, you walk the streets in Tokyo, and you look around, you can't find a gum wrapper on the street. You can't find, you go into New York or you know on the side of buildings, all these paint the tag when they tag buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't do that over there. Now there's some places that are older places and they're kind of run down a little bit, but they're clean. People are courteous and they're just appreciative of things. I think the world of Japan. I've always if I hadn't had if I hadn't had significant ties back here in the States to so many different things, I probably would have just stayed. I would have lived there.
Seems I've never been there, but it just seems the looks of it is such a beautiful country. Just
Yeah, there's
nice.
so well, there's multiple islands and there's so many different environments. From Okinawa being down there to being up in Hokkaido, Sapporo. Yeah, it's just you go along the coast and you got Mount Fuji and the cherry blossoms when that time of year comes. I mean, it's you go into Kyoto, you have all the feudal castles and stuff like that. It's just spectacular. The food's excellent. The other thing you see is obesity rates, longevity. They just you got people you got people in Okinawa who are the oldest of the old, still part of their families, still being taken care of by their families, respected by their families. There's no ageism as there is in the States. You aren't discarded. You aren't sent to a nursing home to sit in a diaper somewhere, get bed sores, and then your kid who never came to see you complains that you were mistreated. That doesn't happen there. They take care of you. They yeah, good family oriented country, or at least in the past. It's changing somewhat now because they've had an influx of people from other countries, so it's not
Yeah.
as pure. It's not as purely um, Japanese as it once was. I think there are sections of town, there are sections of Tokyo now that you have to be a little bit concerned about. You never had that before. But just
See.
a great country overall. I'm a big Japan aficionado.
Now, late '98, Dean and WCW had this great feud with Chris Jericho. Jericho makes all these remarks about your dad and obviously making fun of Dean and all this stuff. You actually show up on Nitro. Was that supposed to lead to a match? I always thought maybe we'd get Jericho versus you.
Nah, they didn't talk to me about doing anything after the fact. And that was kind of a goofy moment for me. Yeah, because he had a cardboard placard or something that he had some stuff on. And eventually he turns on me and he's hitting me with cardboard. I mean, it was bending, and I'm taking a bump to the mat, and
right,
yeah, off a cardboard.
So they never even talked to you about having a match. I figured that would have been a logical next step.
No.
So just literally building.
I wasn't.
Chris.
Yeah, I just wasn't a target for the big organizations, and whether or not I didn't have something that they wanted or whatever it might have been. I don't second guess it. I don't think, oh my God, I never got my shot. I don't care. I've lived a phenomenal life, and my life in the business was part of that phenomenal.
Yeah. So as we wind it down, you head towards the finish. What's next? Like, I know you said you're working with JBL and stuff. So what's next coming up down the pike?
I mean, I'll do some seminar work, and then the Cauliflower Alley Club has their thing in August, so I'll go over there. There's actually a Ricky Santana just got in touch with me. They're having a panel discussion of guys whose dads wrestled, so it'll be myself, Harley Race's kid, and then I think there's somebody else, or maybe a couple other people. So I do things like that just to kind of be around the boys, or I'll go up to Waterloo at the Dan Gable Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Dan Gable's Hall of Fame, and I'll participate up there. I'll do some seminar stuff. I mean, for me, autograph signing and stuff, people don't really know me. The standard deal for me when I'm out and about is if people see the name Malenko, they look and they go, Dean? And I'm like, no, not Dean.
They got to learn a little bit, right? Damn, they got to learn their
history. I don't care. And I don't know how to be any more genuine about this. I'm proud of my brother. He was phenomenal. It's an honor if somebody even says I was Dean. It makes me laugh, and in the same breath, I'm like, yeah, he was pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, definitely. So at JBL though, he's going to be going through some strict Malenko training though. Well,
he's in the throes of training now. He's doing some stuff. I'm working with him somewhat, and then we're on the road. We'll be on the road traveling a little bit, doing some things. So we'll see where all that goes. For me, it's I have fun. I just enjoy doing it. I like being part of the business. I like still bringing up the stuff that I learned when I was a kid, and seeing if I can pass that on to anybody and give them some insight. I kind of my big thing is there's enough people out there who can teach all the ins and outs of doing the circus stuff.
Right.
I'm the basics guy. So I love to come back into an arena or onto a mat, into a ring, and I like to bring guys take everything you're doing right now, stop for a second, let's take it back a notch, and let's talk about the basics, the core of professional wrestling that never changes. Even though you think it has, it never changes. The basic story of professional wrestling is the same. The need to protect your opponent and protect yourself, because you have to go home and take care of your family, or live your life without being all crippled up. I mean, all that starts in how you view the business and how you train and how you have your matches. And I that's my role, is to kind of take people back a notch and say, you can do all these things, but let's talk about how to do them maybe a little bit safer, maybe not as much. You don't have to, if you have 50 moves in your back pocket that you can do, you don't have to do all 50 moves every damn match you do. If you do 45 moves and you get back to the dressing room, you don't have to run back out and do 5 more moves because you forgot them.
Yes. Too much. It's too much sometimes.
Yeah. More is more, less is more or less.
Right. Yes. So do you do social media at all? Is there anywhere anybody can find you, just as far as that?
Not at
you
all.
Don't really do it. Oh no. Okay.
I mean, I'm on So I'm not a big Facebook guy, but I've started using it a little bit more because I'm trying to stay visible for purposes of, doing things with John, and also for some of the seminar stuff, just to have my name out there. Just short of that, I'm not a big social media guy. If anything, it irritates me more than gives me any kind of enjoyment.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Joe, thank you so much for all the time. Really
Oh.
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.